Leadership, that word gets thrown around a lot, right? We often think of leaders as people with titles, CEO, manager, president, coach. But real leadership, it's not about power, it's not about position. It's about standards. It's about living a life where you refuse to settle, where you refuse to shrink, where you demand more of yourself, so you can give more to others. See, true leadership begins the moment you stop making it about you. The second you decide to serve, truly serve others, you become a leader. Doesn't matter if you're running a company, leading a team, or just trying to be the rock in your family. The decision to shift your focus outward, to give, to contribute, to uplift, that's the spark. That's when leadership starts to take root in your life. And here's the truth. When you live from a place of service, a different kind of energy shows up in you. It's not forced, it's not fake, it's power, but not the kind that dominates. It's power that elevates. It comes from knowing who you are and standing tall in your values. Now, a lot of people think leading is about getting people to follow you, but that's not it. Leadership isn't about followers, it's about impact. And impact doesn't come from what you say, it comes from how you live. People don't follow your words, they follow your example. So ask yourself, what are the standards you're living by right now? Not the ones you say you have, but the ones your actions reveal. Are you settling, or are you striving? Are you being driven by fear, or pulled forward by purpose? See, your leadership is in every decision you make. It's in how you treat people when no one's watching. It's in the energy you bring into the room. It's in the discipline you hold yourself to when things get hard. That's leadership, and the beautiful thing is, anyone can become a leader, because leadership isn't given, it's chosen. It's earned every day in the way you show up, the way you handle pressure, the way you keep going when others stop. That's the moment you separate yourself from the crowd. That's when you lead, not just in title, but in truth. You want a great quality of life, then lead, not just in business. Lead in your relationships, lead in your health, lead in your mindset, because the quality of your life will be determined by the standards you refuse to compromise on. And that's the call to rise up, to decide you will be more so you can give more. That's real leadership. That's where the transformation begins. If leadership is the foundation, then influence is the tool that builds everything on top of it. Influence is the single most important skill you can develop, not just for business, but for life. Because here's the truth, nothing changes until someone is influenced. But let's get clear. Real influence isn't manipulation. It's not about controlling someone or pushing an agenda. Real influence is the ability to shape thoughts, shift emotions, and move people to take action for the greater good. And guess what? The first person you have to influence is you. Think about it. Every result in your life, whether it's your body, your finances, your relationships, it all comes down to whether or not you've learned to influence yourself. Can you get yourself to follow through when it's uncomfortable? Can you change your state when things get tough? That's self-influence, and without it, no other influence matters. See, when I talk about influence, I'm not talking about tricking someone. I'm talking about connecting, understanding, guiding. Influence begins with empathy. It starts when you understand the state someone is in, because people don't respond to what you say. They respond to how you make them feel. And if you really want to influence someone, you've got to meet them where they are. You've got to enter their world, feel what they feel. You've got to help them shift their state, mentally, emotionally, even physically, so they can access a better version of themselves. That's what real influence does. It unlocks people. You ever notice how kids are master influencers? They don't study persuasion, but they get what they want, don't they? Why? Because they instinctively understand state. They don't try logic first. They shift your emotion. They light you up. They flatter you. They bring playful energy, and then boom, they ask for the car keys. It's influence in its purest form. So let's flip this. If you can learn to change your own state, you can influence yourself in any situation. Feeling tired, shift your body. Feeling stuck, change your focus. Feeling afraid, step into courage with your physiology. Influence starts with state, and from that place, when you're in a beautiful, powerful state, then you can influence others. Then you can lead, then you can inspire, but only from that place, because if you're in a disempowered state, you'll never lift someone else. You can't give what you don't have. Look, I've worked with presidents, athletes, billionaires, and what separates them isn't intelligence. It's influence. They've mastered the ability to shift themselves first, and then help others do the same. That's what moves the world, not force, not titles, influence. So if you want more joy, more success, more love, then master this skill. Influence your thoughts, influence your emotions, influence your actions, and do it over and over and over again, until it becomes who you are. Influence isn't magic, it's a muscle. Build it, and nothing stays the same. If influence is the master skill, then the emotional state is the power grid that fuels it all. Your state, your moment-to-moment mental and emotional condition isn't just important, it's everything, because here's the thing, people don't act based on their potential. They act based on the state they're in. Let's say you've got two people with the same knowledge, same training, same experience, but one is in a peak state, confident, focused, energized, and the other is in a lousy state, tired, frustrated, unsure. Who do you think is going to perform better? It's obvious, right? The one who's in the right state. That's why, as a leader, mastering your state is non-negotiable. You have to train yourself to shift from fear to courage, from stress to clarity, from anger to compassion, on demand. Not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's hard. Because let's be real, life doesn't always hand you ideal circumstances. People don't always cooperate, plans fall apart, emotions rise, but when you control your state, you control the game. Now, let me break this down. There are 3 patterns that control any emotional state. We call it the triad: physiology, focus, and language. First, physiology. How you use your body determines how you feel. Stand up straight, breathe deep, move with purpose. Your chemistry changes instantly. Want to feel confident? Move like someone who is. You're one motion away from power. Second, focus. Whatever you focus on, you feel. Focus on what's missing, and you'll feel empty. Focus on what you have, and you'll feel grateful. Focus on what you can control, and you'll feel powerful. Focus is a weapon. Name it wisely. Third, language. The words you use to describe your experience shape that experience. If you say, "I'm devastated," your body responds one way. If you say, "I'm challenged," it responds another. Change your words, change your life. That's the triad. It's not theory, it's strategy. It's how you override fear, how you anchor joy, how you build unshakable leadership. And it's available to you every second of every day. Now, think about the leaders you admire. They didn't rise because everything was perfect. They rose because they learned to stay centered while everything was on fire. They built the muscle of state control. They knew that if they could stay strong, they could pull others up too. This is what separates good from great. Not just being in a good state, but creating that state in others. That's what real leaders do. You walk into a room and you shift the energy. You show up with certainty and others borrow your belief. You create a space where fear fades and possibility expands, because leadership isn't about being fearless. It's about being courageous in spite of fear. It's about training your state until it's no longer dependent on conditions. Until your state becomes your identity. That's power, that's influence, that's mastery. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for permission. Step into your most resourceful state now. Train your mind. Train your body. Train your emotions, because when your state is strong, you are unstoppable. And the beautiful thing, you don't need years to change your life. You need moments. The moments where you decide, this is who I am now. Make that decision. Own your state and lead from that place. That's when everything starts to shift. Every great leader, every extraordinary influencer has one thing in common: they've mastered the art of pattern recognition. That might sound abstract, but it's actually one of the most practical superpowers you can develop. Because leadership isn't about reacting, it's about anticipating, seeing what's coming before others even notice it's on the horizon. Let's break this down. What is a pattern? It's simply a repeated way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. And most people are living in patterns they're not even aware of. Emotional patterns, financial patterns, relationship patterns. They run like invisible programs in the background, guiding decisions, shaping outcomes, creating results. Now, if you can recognize these patterns in yourself, you gain power. If you can recognize them in others, you gain influence. And if you can change those patterns, that's where transformation begins. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who constantly procrastinates. That's not just bad time management, it's a pattern. Maybe the real pattern is fear of failure, or perfectionism, or overwhelm. Until they recognize the deeper pattern, they'll keep repeating the same result, no matter how hard they try to change. As a leader, you can't afford to live blindly inside your own loops. You have to ask, what are the consistent patterns in my life that produce the results I don't want? What's the pattern behind the success I do have? Because once you find the pattern, you can rewire it. You can upgrade it. That's personal evolution, but this goes even further. In your business, your team, your clients. There are patterns everywhere: emotional patterns, communication patterns, conflict patterns, productivity patterns. The best leaders are like detectives. They don't just listen to what people say. They track the emotional code behind the words. So when someone's angry, you don't react. You look for the pattern. Are they seeking significance? Do they feel unheard? Are they in a pattern of protection? Because if you can see the pattern, you can lead with empathy instead of ego. You can shift the whole dynamic. Now here's where it gets exciting. When you recognize a pattern, you can interrupt it. And when you interrupt it with enough intensity and repetition, you can replace it. That's how real change happens. Not just intellectually, but neurologically, emotionally, physically. That's what creates momentum. You ever wonder why most people don't change even when they want to? It's because their patterns are stronger than their goals. They're using willpower to fight a system that's running 24/7 in the background. That doesn't work. You have to go deeper. You have to repattern the system. That's what we do as leaders. We help people see the unseen. We help them name their pattern, and then guide them to break it. Sometimes with humor, sometimes with challenge, sometimes with love, but always with clarity. Think about the greatest influencers in history. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela Oprah. What did they do? They helped the world see new patterns. They challenged the old stories. They disrupted the unconscious cycle. And they replaced it with a vision, a new emotional blueprint. So, how do you sharpen your pattern recognition? Start by becoming a student of behavior. Study your own triggers. Notice your recurring thoughts. Journal what frustrates you. Pay attention to when you light up. And ask better questions. Because the quality of your questions determines the clarity of the pattern you reveal. Ask yourself, what's really driving this behavior? What's the payoff for staying in this pattern? What belief is this connected to? Questions like these peel back the layers until the truth is exposed, and truth is power. In the end, leadership isn't about fixing people. It's about revealing the truth that's already within them, and that begins with patterns. When you learn to see the invisible, you can change the impossible. So start seeing more. Look beneath the surface. And when you spot a pattern, don't just observe it, own it. Because leaders don't just notice patterns. They transform them. Let me tell you something most people never hear in leadership training. Your ability to influence others starts with your ability to manage your own emotional state. Because if you're not in charge of your own emotions, guess what? You'll never be in charge of any situation. Influence begins inside. Think about it. We've all had days where we feel off, unmotivated, irritable, overwhelmed, and then someone asks us to lead, to inspire, to show up strong, and we just don't have it. Why? Because we're not in a beautiful state. We're not emotionally aligned, and leadership from that place, it feels forced. It doesn't resonate. People feel the misalignment before you even say a word. But when you're in a peak state, when you're centered, grateful, confident, you become magnetic. Your energy influences the room. People lean in. They trust you. not because of your title, but because your presence changes the atmosphere. That's emotional mastery, not pretending to be positive, but choosing to own your state, no matter what. And it's not always easy. Life throws curveballs, people disappoint you, results don't go your way. But mastery means you decide how you show up even when things feel uncertain. Let me ask you, what's your default emotional state when things get tough? Do you get anxious, frustrated? Do you shrink? Or do you breathe, shift, and step into the version of you that leads with strength and clarity? That decision changes everything. One of the biggest lies we've been sold is that emotions just happen to us. No, emotions are created by what we focus on, the meaning we give things, and how we move our body. And the great news is, you can train those patterns. You can wire a beautiful state into your nervous system. Start simple, change your focus. What are you grateful for in this moment? Change your physiology. Stand up tall, breathe deep, move your body like a leader. Change your language. Speak possibility, not limitation. Do that consistently, and you'll be shocked at how quickly your influence expands. Here's what's wild. When you live in a beautiful state, people start to model your energy. They catch your fire. You don't have to push them, you pull them. Because human beings are wired for emotional resonance. And the most influential leaders are the ones who create an emotional environment where people feel safe, empowered, and inspired. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional, because the world doesn't need another boss barking orders. The world needs emotional leaders, people who can feel deeply and still choose to rise, people who can walk into chaos and bring calm, who can hear bad news and still lead with vision. Let me give you a tool before you enter any meeting, any tough conversation, or any moment where people need your guidance. Pause, ask yourself, what emotional state will best serve this moment? Then create it. Don't wait for it, don't hope for it, generate it. Because when you become the thermostat, not the thermometer, you don't just react to your environment, you set the emotional tone. That's influence. And here's the truth most people miss. When you live in emotional mastery, your quality of life explodes. You don't just lead better, you live better. You experience more joy, more peace, more energy, more love. And people feel that, they trust that. That's how you build movements, not just moments. So from this moment forward, make it your mission to lead from a beautiful state. Protect it, train it, master it. Because your state doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone you influence, your family, your team, your clients, your community. Leadership is not just strategy, it's emotional ownership. And when you lead yourself, you earn the right to lead others. Let's step into that, not someday, not when it's convenient, but now. If you want to influence anyone, your partner, your child, your team, you've got to understand one thing: all human behavior is driven by patterns. And leaders who influence at the highest level, they're master pattern recognizers. Let's break that down. Every person you meet is running patterns, emotional patterns, thought patterns, behavior patterns, and those patterns determine how they react, what they fear, what they chase, and what they avoid. Influence starts when you can see those patterns clearly. See, most people react to the surface, what someone says or does. But influential leaders, they look beneath the behavior. They're not thrown by the emotion, they're curious about what's driving it. Because behavior is just a symptom. The root is always a pattern, and when you spot the pattern, you gain influence. Let's say someone on your team keeps missing deadlines. Most managers will lecture them, threaten consequences, or micromanage. But a real leader gets curious. They might ask, what happens right before you drop the ball? And maybe they find out the person freezes up under pressure. That's a pattern. Or maybe they procrastinate because they fear their work won't be good enough. That's another pattern, and once you know the pattern, you can shift it. Because here's the thing, patterns can be rewired, but not if you're blind to them, not if you're too busy judging or reacting. You've got to slow down, observe, listen deeper, and ask better questions. That's what pattern recognition is all about. Let me take it a step further. If you want to influence someone, you need to speak to the pattern, not just the person. What does that mean? It means if someone has a pattern of needing significance and you ignore that, your message won't land. But if you frame your message in a way that gives them significance, now you've got their attention. Maybe someone else has a pattern of needing certainty. You try to push them into something new and uncertain without addressing that resistance. But if you first help them feel a sense of safety or control, you lower their defenses. You earn influence. This is why influence isn't about manipulation. It's about deep understanding. It's about empathy. It's about caring enough to say, what's really going on here? What's the story this person keeps telling themselves? What emotion do they keep defaulting to? And don't forget, you have patterns too. Your triggers, your go-to reactions, your habitual thoughts. If you want to influence others, you better be fluent in your own patterns first. Because the more aware you are, the more intentional you become. And intentionality is influence. Pattern recognition also gives you leverage. When you understand the pattern, you don't have to fight the person. You can redirect the pattern. You can anticipate where things are headed and interrupt it before it spirals. You become a guide, not a dictator, a coach, not a critic. This is why the best leaders are also great storytellers, because stories are how we install new patterns. If someone's running a story of, "I always mess things up," you can't just say, "Stop thinking that." It won't work. But if you tell a story that proves the opposite, if you show them a pattern of success, you start to rewrite that internal script, one frame at a time. So I want to challenge you, start paying attention. When someone talks, don't just hear their words, listen for their wiring. What do they value? What do they fear? What do they avoid? What are they really asking for? The more you do this, the more influence you gain. Not through force, but through insight. Because when someone feels deeply understood, they'll follow you, they'll trust you, they'll let you lead. And when you combine emotional mastery with pattern recognition, you become unstoppable. You're no longer guessing or winging it. You're leading with precision. Remember, people aren't problems to solve. They're patterns to understand. And the leader who sees the pattern clearly will always be the one who creates the most change. Let's not settle for surface-level leadership. Let's influence from depth, from truth, from pattern mastery. That's the real game, and it starts right now. Now let's talk about the one thing that separates those who talk about change from those who live it: immersion. If you really want to grow, if you truly want to lead and influence at the highest level, you can't just dabble. You've got to immerse, because transformation doesn't happen through information. It happens through repetition, emotion, and total engagement. You already know this deep down. Think about how you learned to walk, to speak, to ride a bike. You didn't attend a seminar. You didn't read a book on the 7 principles of pedaling. You immersed yourself. You fell, you got up, you adjusted, and you kept going, again and again. That's immersion. Now apply that to leadership, to influence, to your emotional state. If you want to become someone who leads powerfully, you can't just watch a motivational video and hope it sticks. You need to live in that energy. Surround yourself with it. Condition it every single day. This is why events are so powerful. When someone steps into an environment that's fully immersive, where the energy, the focus, the breakthroughs are non-stop, they can experience in 3 days what might take years to accomplish otherwise. Why? Because they're not just thinking differently, they're feeling differently. They're moving, breathing, seeing the world with new eyes. That's real change, but here's the key. You don't need to wait for an event. You can create immersion every day. Make your home an environment for growth. Fill your mornings with focus and your evenings with reflection. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, not just comfort you. That's immersion. Think about elite athletes. They don't train once a week. They live the game, their workouts, their sleep, their nutrition. It's all designed for mastery. You want to lead with that same excellence? Then your immersion has to match your ambition. And let me be clear, immersion isn't about perfection. It's about obsession. It's about loving the process so much that even the pain becomes part of the reward. Because when you're immersed, even failure becomes fuel. Even rejection becomes redirection. There's a phrase I live by: where focus goes, energy flows. And immersion is just focused energy, sustained over time. That's how you rewire your brain. That's how you shift your identity. That's how you move from trying to being. You want to be a more influential communicator. Don't just read one book on persuasion. Immerse yourself in human psychology, study patterns, practice framing, watch how the best leaders move people with their words, then speak every day, refine your message, keep showing up. You want to be emotionally bulletproof. Don't just meditate once and say it didn't work. Immerse yourself in emotional fitness, prime your state every morning, challenge your limiting beliefs, surround yourself with empowering stories. That's the immersion mindset. Because, here's the truth, growth isn't something you visit, it's something you move into. You make it your home, your lifestyle, your standard, and when you do that, people notice. They feel your energy shift. They see your consistency. You don't just influence them with your words, you influence them with your being. So stop dipping your toe in the water, jump in, immerse yourself. If you want to lead at the highest level, there's no other way. Immerse in learning, immerse in service, immerse in love, and watch what happens. Not just in your life, but in the lives you touch. You've come this far. You've learned about state, about identity, about patterns. Now it's time to live it, not someday, today, because the world doesn't need another person who knows what to do. It needs more people who embody it, fully, passionately, unapologetically, and that starts with immersion. At the end of the day, the ultimate force that drives influence, leadership, fulfillment, it's not strategy, it's not technique, it's not even knowledge, it's love. Real leadership starts when you stop needing to be significant and start choosing to be of service. That's the shift that changes everything. Love isn't soft. Love is power. Love is the courage to show up when it's hard. Love is the strength to listen deeply, to care when it's inconvenient, to speak truth even when it shakes you. And when you lead from that place, you don't just inspire people. You ignite them. You've built the emotional state. You've recognized your patterns. You've clarified your identity. You've committed to growth. You've immersed yourself in the process. Now it's time to give it away. That's the final step, because the secret to living is giving. Start at home. Be the presence your family needs, not just the provider. Listen without your phone in your hand. Hug longer. Laugh more. Love louder. Let the people closest to you feel your leadership. Not through words, but through your consistency and care. Then take it outward. Your team, your community, your clients, even total strangers, lead with love, not fluffy emotion, but fierce commitment. Be the one who brings clarity when others are confused, certainty when others hesitate, hope when others are tired. You're not here to play small. You're not here to be liked. You're here to serve, to lead, to move people out of their limitations and into their possibilities. And you can't do that playing it safe. You've got to finish with fire. That fire comes from knowing who you are, from training your state, from doing the reps, mentally, emotionally, physically. So when the moment comes, you don't flinch, you rise. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this be another video you watch and forget. Don't take notes, take action. Right now, decide, who are you going to show up as today, not someday, today. Decide to lead. Decide to love. Decide to influence through energy, not just words. Through presence, not just performance. Through service, not just success. You were born for more. You feel it, that ache in your chest. That's your soul calling you forward, to step up, to give more, to be more. And you don't have to do it alone. You've got this channel. You've got this community. You've got a voice inside you that already knows what to do. You just have to listen and move. This is your time. You didn't stumble here. You were guided here. And if you're still listening, it's because something in you is ready to go to the next level. So here's the call to action. Stand up. Breathe deep. Lock in that identity. Prime your state. Commit to your mission, and go out there not to get something, but to give something. Lead with love, finish with fire, and never forget. You are the one. If this moved you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it. Subscribe to Robbins Talk. Join the mission. Be the spark that lights someone else's fire. This isn't just motivation. This is a movement. Let's go.